Hey everyone, before we get started, take a second to like and subscribe to the show.
It's the best way to help us share great information with more people. Thank you.
Caring for a sibling with a disability is a role many people step into without ever really choosing it and without much guidance on how to carry it. You are a brother or a sister first, but over time that line can blur into advocate and coordinator, protector, planner for the future. So, in this episode, we are talking about what it really means to care for a sibling with a disability, the responsibilities people don't talk about, the emotions that are hard to name, and the questions that often get pushed aside until a crisis forces them forward. So, if you've ever wondered how to support your sibling while still building your own life and not burning out, this conversation is for you.
And we have here with us to discuss this very important topic, Elizabeth Miller. Elizabeth Miller is a family caregiver advocate. She's a speaker, an author, a certified caregiving consultant, and a certified senior advisor. Her experiences caring for her aging parents with chronic and terminal illnesses and for her neurodivergent sibling has inspired her to create Happy Healthy Caregiver LLC, which she created in 2015. Through her coaching services, speaking, award-winning podcast, book, and online community, Elizabeth helps family caregivers infuse caregiving and self-care with their busy lives. She hosts the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast on the Whole Care Network, wrote the Just For You, a daily self-care journal, and facilitates support groups for family caregivers. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here. Welcome back to the show. It's been a long time since we've seen you.
Thank you. Happy to be back. Love chatting with you ladies.
Yeah, so why don't we start by just saying it has been a while. Catch us up. What's been going on with you and Happy Healthy Caregiver?
Yeah. So, we have seasons of caregiving. We talk about that, right? And what started Happy Healthy Caregiver was caring for my aging parents and navigating the resources and clawing my way back from caregiver burnout. And we did have responsibilities for caring for my brother when my mom, was in the last 6 years of her life after my dad had passed away. She had really detached herself a lot from caring for my brother. And so we were picking up some responsibilities for him, but we had our hands full, right? With family and work and caregiving for her and managing all of that. And so we kind of backburnered him. If he wasn't like on fire, we just kind of let things go status quo. And so for a while then when that was happening, and when my mom was, continuing to decline and spend her last 2 years, she passed in 2020. We were doing this thing with siblings of juggling care we were snowbird caregivers. He was spending some time in Michigan and some time in Georgia where I live. And that worked for a minute and then until it didn't. And what you find, with caring for somebody who he has an intellectual and developmental disability, he's on the autism spectrum, that the services, the resources are really different for him than they are for aging parents. My sister had him in rural Michigan and I live in metro Atlanta. While every state has different resources and things for caregivers, and Georgia may not be the best one for caregivers, frankly, I have other two brothers that live down here with me. And so we made the sibling decision to move him to Georgia full time, because while the Snowberg thing was nice that we each got like a break for a while, it wasn't what was best for my brother. So having said that, be careful what you wish for, right? November of 2024 is when he moved to Georgia full time, and I'm his primary person down here. And so last year was spent with getting tests done so we could get him qualified for resources. It was transitioning different doctors. And of course, every time you go to a new doctor, you've got a different care plan. You've got different treatments. You get sometimes change in medication. Sometimes he needed different procedures. He had to have 2 teeth pulled. Like you go in and it's like one thing spirals into another thing. So I spent a lot of last year getting Tom situated, and we were also looking for a community for him for a long-term care plan. And that was something that I was really pushing with my siblings to say, look, like we're all aging, we're getting older. We need a long-term care plan for him. And we are not professionally equipped to work with people with disabilities. So we did move him into a community in December. And so now we were in this phase in 2026 of like working out the kinks, figuring out what that looks like, and working with this team of people to make sure that he's getting the best care, that he doesn't feel abandoned. He's, got some issues there. Like It's been a lot. It's been a lot. And with that, in the fall, I really was like, look, I coach people on burnout, and here I am burning out. Like, that's not okay. Yeah.
How'd
I know that
you
was
end
more
up?
than you probably bargained for, but I
No,
feel
that
like,
was
are you
perfect.
caught
Oh,
up?
that's great. It's
Okay.
That was great. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially because you have spent so much time coaching people on burnout. And we can all be our worst like patients, for lack of a better term. Like, how long did it take you, or like what was it that made you realize, like, actually I'm having burnout myself? Did you recognize it right away, or were you like really struggling and then stopped and looked back and said, oh, maybe I should implement some of my own
Yeah.
strategies?
I think it did present itself a little bit differently than with my parents, because when I was caregiving for my parents, I was working in corporate America. I was raising kids. Like, I was certainly doing a lot of different tasks. But one of the things that I think compounded maybe the burnout for me last year is that I am an entrepreneur. I am like you all who, I don't have paid time off. I don't have a team of people who can get this slack that I'm leaving when I'm taking him to appointments and researching these things. So, and while I did have some help with some other siblings here in Georgia, I have a sibling that is not a lot of help, which a lot of people have. I have a sibling that is help, but kind of choosy about where he wants to lean in, has to kind of be specifically asked to do things. He's not going to like see it and volunteer for it. So that really did fall on me. While my sisters did what they can, I think a little from remotely, they also had some things happening in their lives. So I think it was maybe a combination of the entrepreneur and the caregiving burnout. And there was a lot of fun stuff that happened last year. Like, I did a lot of traveling internationally, even 3 different times I went on an international trip. So it was a very kind of unusual year and lovely trips, but you do pay for those things, gearing up to take them both for caregiving and entrepreneurship and coming back. And so while in some ways they filled my bucket, in some ways it was just different. I came back not as rejuvenated as I thought I would be. And so some of the other signs for me were, the shaky voice coming to tears, when I'm talking about things, or just lack of patience, I think, is a big thing. Not so much whereas before, maybe I was retreating from activities I enjoyed and my girlfriends and things like that. I did not do that. I was still doing all of those things because I know that those help me. And so keep kind of showing up for myself, physically, socially, mentally, and all of that. So it was different, but I think that explains it. It is still a little bit like a frog in boiling water, where you don't know, I think, until sometimes you're at that boiling point. And I feel like one of the big wake up calls for me was I did go to one of my providers for my health, and he said, "You've gained 14 pounds since the summer." And I was like, what? I'm doing the things, like, what is happening? So that was a big wake up call.
I want to kind of ask you some more questions about like the
Sure.
shared responsibility of caregiving. And if you don't want to discuss any of this, or it's like too personal, please feel free to just say so and we can move
What do you
on to
want to
another
know?
topic.
Yeah,
Well,
no, it's okay.
I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit more. So you became the primary caregiver, and you talked a little bit about this already, but I kind of wanted to dig down into that a little bit more. Like, do you think you became the primary caregiver because of Happy Healthy Caregiver, or because you had been the primary caregiver for mom and dad and people were like, oh, Elizabeth knows how to do it? And obviously there are lots of family dynamics involved in this, but I think sometimes it might be helpful for other people to hear, like, this is how you got into that situation, because so often there's one person who just kind of ends up as the primary caregiver because they're the one who leans in, right?
Right. I mean, so a lot of the caregiving work with both my parents and my brother has been on my older sister in Michigan. She's an artist. She has flexibility. She is the nurturer in our family. And myself I think I got this from in Georgia, partly because of the resources that are available here, partly because I was pushing for the long-term care plan. I knew that what we were doing was not working and that we needed to try something different. And I think that was kind of the narrative I was sharing with my siblings. I was like, we know what this looks like. We can go back to this. But what if it's amazing? What if we really get him situated somewhere? And somebody with neurodiversity really needs structure and routine. I think, so while I kind of knew what the role was going to be, like, oh, we're going to be transitioning doctors, and it still is a lot. Like, I feel like there's this still this invisible part of, I don't know that my siblings are waking up at, 3 or 4 in the morning and thinking about, like, is he having a good day today? Like
Yeah.
they're probably not. So you can kind of, hear the emotion there still. I'm still working. I'm a work in progress, like most people. So
Yeah.
I think, and honestly, started doing talk therapy to help with that. So that's been kind of a new twist. So I think that's where it's different, like the invisible part of that, and that he is different than an aging parent, and that he's got like intermittent explosive behavior that is a lot. It's a lot, it's, hey, you look fat today, you're, constant like repeat behavior, nagging phone calls, repeat phone call. Like there's a lot to manage there with that. And so I am his person that is like, and yet there's also this side of my brother that he can be appreciative, more so than I've seen him in a while. Like he's been very reluctant to kind of try some of the things that we've been doing this past year with first getting in him in a day program as like a trial, because one of the things my parents did some amazing stuff, and that they got my brother in a good spot financially. Like he's got a special needs trust. He's, that part I'm so grateful for.
Yeah. What a blessing that is.
A huge blessing and a weight off of us. Will we run out of money? Maybe, but we're going to cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think the part that they fell short on is the social isolation for him. And partly that might have been due to their own health issues, where he did not really integrate with other individuals like himself since high school. And he's 63 years old, so it's, teaching him skills of how to be kind and how to, make a friend and remember a name. Like it's all of that stuff, like kind of like parenting, but harder.
Yeah.
Because I'm his little sister, and, he's not neurotypical. So it's challenging in that way. But, there was definitely a point where, I've been tracking my hours. I encourage caregivers to do that, because I think that, yes, for the task, we want to have the visibility of what we're doing, but it's still impossible to track the 4 a.m., the 5 a.m. wake up hours.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about why you feel like it's important to track your hours.
So I think if we want policy change and things, like I'm always fascinated when I read the reports for caregivers, like the National Alliance on Caregiving, the AARP, and that we see that, the average caregiver is working 24 hours a week. And I'm like, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, how many hours am I doing caregiving stuff, And so I started tracking it last May because I did want some visibility to that. I think I could feel that it was heavy, but I was like, why is it feeling so heavy? Like, what is it? And I think part of that was like, I wasn't changing in my workload. Like my workload was the same. And then I'm heaping on this other stuff. I think if we want policy change and we want to really talk candidly about the invisible caregiving labor, we need data. We need data in order to make decisions. And that might be a little bit of my IT background coming through, where you make data with decisions, like throw things against the wall, see what sticks. And the same thing is true with caregiving. But I think I need some like a 10% contingency on these hours, or 15%. Like what percent do we add for the emotional load of it as well?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting question, because you're right. There are like the hours that you can actually track and document. This is how long I spent on hold with an insurance company to verify benefits, then talked with the pharmacy, then went to this doctor's appointment. Like those are things that we can actually track. But you're right, there's also that time where you're waking up at 4 a.m. or maybe where you're so preoccupied during, let's say, your paid employment hours that you're struggling getting work done because you're thinking about, the things that you have to do for your loved one, or you're just worried about them, right? Or feeling guilty, or all of the emotions that come along with this journey.
Mm-hmm. So true. So we'll see if it helps, but I think at least it's visible. And what I have been finding is that for me, it was very telling, as I started kind of looking back at the hours and saying, oh, on average, I'm spending 25 hours a month on caregiving. Well, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's over half of a work week. That is a lot.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about some resources that you put together for 2026, some kind of like rejuvenating, positive things.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you first, though. Having decided to move your brother into a community, how has that affected you and your life and your caregiver journey?
Yeah, at first I was really worried, and there is still this like little worry in the back of my head, like, is he going to get kicked out? Like, is this intermittent behavior thing going to be too much? And then like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But I also can reframe that to say, I coach on this, right? Like, don't worry about a problem until you have a problem. You suffer twice in that instance. And so then I'm like, snap out of it. And it's going much better than I anticipated. And I think it is I'm going to pat myself on the back too for a little bit for that, for being the advocate for him. And he has a case manager, and, I'm educating them. I'm saying, look, he needs to have a proactive relationship. He doesn't need to just see you when he's getting in trouble. You need to, create a relationship with him. Here are some of his triggers, like we had an explosion this past week where he denied getting blood work done because now some of his doctors come to the community, which is amazing. So that saves me. I see the sustainability of that, and that excites me. But it's got kinks in it. Well, he didn't want to do his blood work because he needs to drink a lot of water. He's really hard. Giving blood is really hard for him. Don't we want to know when we got to give blood work and that we have an appointment? Do you want to be ripped out of an activity that you enjoy doing and asked to give blood work on the fly? Like, nobody likes that. And so I'm telling them, like, you're never going to be successful taking him out of his activity that he enjoys to do a blood or urine test and not preparing him ahead of time. And seem like common sense to me, but it's just not. And so it is the constant advocating, and they have my number, already, and maybe they know I'm a happy, healthy caregiver, or maybe they don't. And I'm not.
Do you disclose that? Probably not.
I don't hide it. I have a tire cover on my car. I think I've tagged him, and commented on some of their posts, but yeah, you got to get, it is a great community though. It's kind of a unicorn community. There's not a lot of places for people like my brother to live, and he can age there in place, all the way up to skilled nursing if it came to that at some point. So he's in a semi-independent community right now, apartment. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And is it like a standard one, like a standard continuing care community, or is it specific?
This is a private community. Yeah, it's called an Annandale is what it's called in Swanee, Georgia. It was started from a family that had a need, and it kind of gives you like a 1970s camp vibe, other than they have this amazing new program center with a theater and a pool and a basketball court, and he can work and have purpose and earn money for activities. And
oh wow,
that's
incredible.
Yeah, it's an amazing fit, and it's not perfect because my brother drove, which was really unusual for people like himself to drive. And maybe that was, we grew up in small town Pennsylvania, and my parents were like, you're going to get your license like everybody else. And it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes for him to drive. We've had him tested to make sure he's cognitively available, able to do that, but he can't have a car there. They don't want the liability. And so that's been a real challenge of how do we manage and mitigate that as a family. Mm-hmm. So for now, we are doing like little mini breaks here and there where he comes out for a long weekend. He loves to go to the drive-in movie theater in particular. They're not going to take them there. They don't have employees that work late at night like that. So I don't want him to give up those things that bring him joy, which I know we're going to get into the joyful, fun stuff for this year. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to just say first, before we make that segue, thank you so much for being so open and candid about your experience with your brother. And I think it's really helpful. I mean, we all know it's helpful to hear from other people about their stories so we know they're not alone. I just also want to say thank you for sharing this story, because he is a neurodivergent person. And that's not something that necessarily gets highlighted a lot in caregiving for adults,
siblings,
who are neurodivergent.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is a really unique thing. It comes with its own struggles. And I know people who are also in that position or share that similarity, when they hear that, like, I just know that that's going to be really helpful to them. So thank you so much for so honesty
If I
and
had the
openly
energy,
sharing.
thank you. In the back of my head, I'm like, I should be sharing and talking about this more often on my social posts and stuff. But I'm, again, tired. I'm just tired and
Yeah.
processing it myself in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you can't live in that state of mind 24/7.
No.
You got to think about other stuff. So speaking of that, let's segue into some fun stuff. So you have a thing for this year. It's 20 for 2026 activities. Tell us a little bit about that.
So this has been the 8th or the 9th year in the making, where I kind of got this idea off of another podcast that I listened to, and tweaked it so it fit us a little bit better. But in the beginning of the year, people really focus on resolutions and, changing their whole life. And for caregivers, it's really hard it's hard for regular individuals to do that. And you add the caregiving component on it. And so what we really need in our life is more fun. We need more fun. And I think a lot of times we lose ourselves and we lose our identity when we're caring for other people. And so I want to encourage people to infuse more fun in their life. Like, I call self-care anything that's going to energize me physically, mentally, give me peace of mind, or is just pure joy. And this is where the joy part comes in. So there are 20 things that I have heard people mention or thought I wanted to try or I miss doing, that I want to infuse into my year. And I know for sure that when you write them down, and they are more likely to happen. And so this is an activity that we do in my family of 4. My sisters do it. My sister's company does it. Caregivers do it. And the power of it happens when you identify your 20 things for 2026, and then you share it. A lot of times at our family table when we're doing it together is, oh, I like that. I would like to do that, or I'll do that with you. And so then we're creating memories. We're creating special moments. I think with a caregiver and a care recipient, we're starved for that. Like, those relationships get really strained. The joy part disappears sometimes with that. So with that, this is what it looks like. And it's just like a regular form. And I can share the link where people can get one of their own. And now that I know, I expect this to be a thing every year. Like, I'll hear things throughout this year. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that sometime. And I put it in a little note in my phone, and I consider it as something I want to add for next year. But some of the things are milestone related. So my husband and I are celebrating 30th wedding anniversary this year. Yes.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. I still
congrats.
like him too. I know.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I'm speaking out in the Seattle area in April around that. So we're building a trip around that. Monthly bouquets. So buying myself flowers. Like, why am I waiting for flowers? I can buy myself flowers. I want to take some kind of class. And so it's not real specific, but I'll know it when I hear about it or see it. Visit my daughter, who's a travel nurse. So she's going all over the place this year. I don't even know where she's going to be, but I'm going to go visit her somewhere. I want to do a food tour. And again, I don't know exactly where that's going to be. Could be in my hometown, could be somebody else. I want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So the past few years, I've seen people take the day off and go wear green and drink green beer. And I thought, girl, you are an entrepreneur. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. Host a mahjong. So I'm actually doing a mahjong party coming up this weekend. Candlelight concert. A stitch night. I started needle pointing. I want to do one of those tea party buses where they're drive around. Different cities have these. So those, I don't have to go through all. I love estate sales. And so sometimes I want to do 12 estate sales. So I have little check boxes for that one where I'll check it off. But I love thrifting I'm in my little thrifting era now. So it's changed over time. And I think, depending upon what kind of caregiver you are, yours might look a little bit differently than mine. Like, my kids are grown. I'm an entrepreneur. My brother, lives in a community. And so, I have more capability and capacity sometimes to do these things. But your things might be over the years back when it might have been one year. The one that sticks out was I knew I liked Malbec's wines, red wines, but I wanted to find my favorite brand of Malbec. And so I was like, I'm going to try different Malbec wines and see which one I like the best. So what would some of y'all's be? Is there anything that you're hearing that you're like, I would put that on my list, or something that it triggered for you?
That's so funny. My last year was not filled necessarily with caregiving so much, but it was sort of like a hectic, crazy year. And also, I just feel like I have been working so hard as an entrepreneur and
Grinding.
just grinding and, raising kids. And there's just been a lot going on for the last few years. And then last year in particular was just a lot. Like my family moved states and it was a big thing. And I really felt like my, not necessarily New Year's resolution, but New Year's intention, which like Brandy and her husband do this, I think it's the most amazing thing, has just been to slow down.
Yeah.
And do things that I want to do because I want to do them.
It's
and
a
not
hell
because,
yeah.
Yes.
It's a hell yeah.
Yeah. Not because I feel obligated, and to really start saying no to the things that I don't want to do and start saying yes to the things that I actually do. So this year, like, I really want to take classes to learn a language.
Nice.
That's on my list. I want to be more intentional about traveling, and we've already got a couple of trips booked. I want to go out to lunch with my girlfriends.
Yes,
more,
do it.
And so I think that more coffee dates, more lunch dates, more things like that. I want to volunteer at my kids' schools. And so things that I used to do more. I mean, I've never taken a language class since college. I minored in German, but I haven't spoken in,
well, in the meantime, you can do Duolingo app. I love it. I'm addicted.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, everything that you were saying, I think just like resonated so deeply. And yeah, I absolutely have those things that like, I'm going to say, yeah, these are hell yeses. And I'm going to do those things, and everything else can maybe just chill for a little while.
Good.
I think that's like, it's such a valuable point too, that it doesn't always have to be a big thing, and it might be something small, and it might not even be something that's continuous. So I love the idea that it's just like kind of like a checklist of like, I'm gonna get, this is my bucket list for the year of 2026, and let's see how many of these I make happen, And so I think it's so important to have a spark of something to look forward to. Like, happiness is being able to have something to look forward to, no matter how big or small it is. And so I love the way that you set it out. I've seen somebody else do, it's very similar to what you're talking about. And instead of having a vision board, it was like a bingo card.
A bingo. I saw that this year. I was like, oh, that's fun. It's very similar, I think, where they check it out. And you don't have to make yourself all cutesy. Like, this is my daughter influencing me
makes
too.
You feel like,
but I look at it all year long.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but my sons are just writing them out. Nothing fancy there. What about Brandy? What would be something on yours?
Yeah, these are not little things. They're big things. Last year, we intentionally did not travel to just like save money because we had done a lot of really big trips. So I'm glad that we were off our travel ban, and we've got, I have something, whether it's work or, and travel for work to me is not problematic. I'd love to travel. And so whether it's initiated by work or initiated by family and friends, we got something happening every month almost for the whole year, or at least till November. So I'm looking forward to hitting the road again. And then some other things that I think are like, I want to do more of that are part of my everyday routine, or like part of my every week, is we have Friday night movie night. And for a while there, I kind of just like let the kids do it on their own, and I didn't participate. But this year I wanted to be more intentional about being there, even though I always fall asleep.
Yeah.
But they are aware of that, and they're okay with it. They just want me to get up there and get started.
Yeah, I stay awake through the popcorn. It's when the popcorn runs out. I just need to eat it slower.
Exactly.
Stay awake.
When we're done with popcorn, I'm not. Yes.
Yeah, I'm out too.
That's one of my favorite things about family movie night, is like, it's usually not a particularly good movie. So halfway through, I'm like passed out on the couch, and it's, I make sure and get ready in my jammies beforehand, because I don't want to deal with all that, muck once I'm half asleep anyway.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I love, again, just pointing out, like, it can be big things, but it doesn't have to be big things.
No, a new hiking trail, or, anything that you've just thought like, this could be interesting. Writing a letter, or calling a friend, or whatever it is that you kind of miss. I think, for caregivers too, kind of connecting the dots there related to self-care obviously you're doing things that are fun for you. Sometimes we have a hard time asking for help, right? But it could be a lot easier to share this with a friend and say, hey, here's my 20 for 26 list. Is anybody interested in, helping with these? Can you be my chief officer of fun and, take one of these things to help make a reality out of it, like schedule it and let me know enough in advance so I can make it happen. But I think it's much easier to ask somebody to help us infuse some fun versus some kind of a drudgery task. So and it's another way, we need a care team for us just as much as our people need a care team for them.
Yeah,
Elizabeth,
I think that's such a good. I think it's just such a good point to make sure that you have a team too, right? Like even if
Yes.
you're a team of like you are the person's person, you have to be supported as well. And you don't need to have just one person. Like that's also a strain on them. And like to make sure that we, think about the people in our lives as like a helpmate, and they all have their different purpose. Like this is my friend I go bowling with, and this is my friend that I call on Saturdays because I know they don't gotta do in the morning time. This is my friend I walk with, whatever. So then you have enough people around you that are helping you do the things that bring you joy.
Exactly. Well said. Well said.
Elizabeth, before we wrap up here, let's tell people a little bit about where they can find more from you, more of your resources. We will definitely, if you want to share that link with us for the 20 in 26 checklist, we'll make sure and link that in the show notes for everyone. Also, if you all want to see, if you're just listening to this right now and you want to see the checklist that Elizabeth held up and showed here on the podcast, if you're listening on Spotify, you can just go ahead and switch over to the video version of this. If you otherwise you want to see it on our YouTube channel, you can go to the Care Lab podcast on YouTube and you can see it there too. But so where can people find more from you, Elizabeth?
Best spot is to go to happyhealthycaregiver.com. You can go there. Hopefully you'll get a pop-up that'll ask you to join the email list. Every week I share something happy, healthy care related there. You can link to the podcast. And then you'll see on the blog, I've got the Enjoy the Mix in 2026, create your 20 for 26 list. And you'll see last year's picture. And then on my social, you can see the one that I did for this year as well. So is another option. But I would love to connect. Supporting and helping, educating, supporting, and providing resources for caregivers is what I'm all about. So I want to help make it easier for you and know that you can do hard things, but you don't have to do them all alone.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for being back on the show. Oh, sorry, Brandy, go for it.
I was going to do the same thing. I was just going to wrap this up and say thank you, Elizabeth, for coming and sharing that with us.
It goes fast. Yes.
It does.
Yes. I hope that this is landing on people who need to hear it today and that it's lifting them up in some way.
Yeah, I hope so too. And so if you are listening to this, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this episode, please take a moment to share this episode with someone you know who might benefit from hearing it. Take a moment to like and subscribe so you get notified the moment that we drop another podcast, which is every Friday. And if you have another second, leave a review, leave a comment. These are really the best ways to help us reach more people like you who can benefit from this information. Until next week, we'll see you right back here on Care Lab.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.